Good morning. You're listening to Drinking Socially, the official Untappd podcast.
Your weekly look at what's happening in the Untappd community and the world of beer. So this episode is brought to you by Untappd and the Untappd store. Use the coupon code PODCAST to get 20% off your next purchase. That's store.untappd.com and the coupon code PODCAST. And remember to like and subscribe to this podcast if you haven't yet. That helps us keep this party going.
Speaking of party, it's tasters, right? Everything good begins with a taste. Maybe a taste of paradise, an acquired taste, champagne taste on a beer budget. Although that one probably doesn't mean the same thing anymore with the price of a 4-pack. Taste as good as it smells, Maxwell House, and of course, taste the rainbow. But there are, of course, other connotations to the word taste, like bad taste in your mouth, taste great, less filling. Sorry, Miller Lite. A taste your own medicine. So, okay. What's all this about taste? It's going to be a polarizing show, I think. But the ask is, how should you use the taster option in your Untappd check-ins? Harrison and I polled the Drinking Socially Facebook group asking what badge should we cover, and the answer was clearer than your dad's beer. And we're ready with our appropriate size glassware and a brand new beer. Harrison, tell us about the badge.
That's right. So tonight or today or this morning, depending on where you are, what time it is, we're doing Taster Please. So the description of this badge is at a new place and don't want to choose a pint of something you may not like? Grab a few tasters, enjoy some small pours, and then decide which to upgrade to a full pour. And this is not to be confused with the Taste Crazy badge. That's a one-time badge you can earn by checking into 5 different types of beer in one day. So that's not happening now. That would be, right, we'd probably be violating something by doing that. But here we are going after Taster Please tonight.
Speaking of taster, as we get ready to pour these beers, Harrison, do you have the appropriate glassware ready?
I do have the appropriate glassware ready. John, what do you have? What are you doing there? What is that?
Maybe Mike, hold on. Here we go.
Oh, all right. That might be onto something. Might be on a similar page.
Is it the glassware that makes it a taster?
I think I'm the taster. Yeah.
While we try and figure this out, if you're not watching on YouTube, let's get to the beer real quick because I'm excited to try this one. It comes from Wire Brewing out of Asheville, I think, originally, and then Durham and Tennessee, and even now here in Wilmington. So we're drinking Wire Brewing's Low Pitch Hazy IPA. Harrison with the YouTube reveal.
Yep.
This is an American IPA, 5.5% ABV with 45 IBUs. It's rated at 3.7 on Untappd with less than 1,000 check-ins. They give us a little bit of a description on Untappd. Easy drinking, hazy IPA packs a bright citrus hop punch without all the bitterness. I'll admit I'm a fan of that, right? Juicy American hops and a light malt bill make Low Pitch the perfect pairing for sandy shores, mountaintops, backyard hangs, or if you're like me, your own house all the time. Harrison, I see you've already got it poured into a taster glass.
I do, right. I feel like Andre the Giant right now with a normal sized glass. I love drinking in small glasses.
Before you taste it, what were you doing with the can? Were you spinning it around just for show, or
was I? So they have this cool thing on their can. It's the first time I've seen it, so I'm not sure if it's on all of them or just their hazies or whatnot. But it says, "Please rouse before pouring" on the back of it, and has an image of you kind of flipping and twirling the can. Which, like, rousing up yeast in brewing terminology means to kind of like kick them up off the floor of the tank so they can eat some more sugar. Sometimes you have to do that if you're if your fermentation stalls out, you can kind of wake that yeast back up and let them finish up. But in this case, I think it just means to kind of kick the haze back into the glass if maybe it's settled in shipping, or while it's chilled out in the cooler waiting for you to get it. So I did a quick little flip there, and it's not turbid at all, but it's definitely hazy. It's definitely, it's got a nice haze to it. Ooh, all right, let me dive in. Ooh.
And you're already done.
Love it. Love this stuff. Anybody want a peanut? All right, let's keep going. So, first sip, if we're calling it that, it's so tons of fruit, and like I'm pretty sure they have Amarillo in here. They must, because that's like what I'm getting. It's like Amarillo. It has got a nice like sparkly bitterness, we're gonna call it, like a carbonated bitterness, right? It's like light, but it's bubbling around. I can feel it kind of like popping off on my tongue, like some bitter pop rocks, but not overwhelming at all. This is great, 5.5% too. I was hopeful when I saw this, that it would be something that perhaps would become kind of like a summer go-to or a spring go-to. I was looking for something that won't knock me down, but has some flavor. So this is, as so far with sip number 1, as advertised. What are you getting in there though, John? What are you experiencing?
I think for me, once you said it, I started just tasting it all over. That sparkly bitterness is, it's almost like it's not. I would say it's almost like dry, right? Not to brute IPA, not going down that road, but more of like a dry than a super bitter flavor. But it's got more. It's 5.5%. We drank some really low calorie beers last season on Drinking Socially, and those were just like like shotgun would be fine. Yeah, exactly. to get through those. This has enough flavor at 5.5% where I know I'm drinking it, but it tastes to me like the candy you used to get out of like the quarter machines when you'd have to put a quarter in and like turn the crank, and this candy from 10 years ago would fall out. Yes, it was still good, but it had this like sugar sweetness that I find in here that's delicious.
Yeah. It's kind of like I get that too. That kind of classic, like fruity malt candy kind of thing happening. That you're right. Gosh, I was always the kid who tried to get the stickers and wanted the cool like Ninja Turtle with the lightning bolt that ended up getting like the Barbie who was sitting down like on the ground. And I was like, why is this even a sticker? This is useless. No one would like this. So I never had luck.
Well,
I should have known then what not a gambling man. It's just not my. It's not my speed. But some lessons take a while to learn. But at any rate, no, this is tasty. I'm just kind of looking through the check-ins. It must be a relatively new beer. As you mentioned, it's only like 700 or so total check-ins. 200 of them this month, and we're really now I guess just halfway through February. So. Great, for good timing. It's getting warmer soon, I hope. Another thing about this, drinking in this kind of vessel, is it's like, like you gulp it down and it's just like, you can have one sip and it's gone, and then I might as well refill it up. It's like using a glass that's small is a good way to drink a beer quicker than you realize, because each sip you have is like, oh, it's gone. I got to fill it up again.
Might as well finish it.
Right, and then you do that 4 times and the beer's disappeared.
My first taste, I felt the same compulsion just drinking out of a small glass. It's like almost like going to a tapas restaurant or a small bite, like a deviled egg.
Yes.
No one eats half a deviled egg. You just put the whole thing in your mouth. And that's what happens when I'm drinking out of a taster glass. Right. There isn't much tasting. It's just, I better finish this in one gulp.
Right. Or it's, oops.
Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're gonna I think learn. There's a wide range of correctness when it comes to taster glasses and taster culture. We're going to dive into that in a minute. I did see in check-ins a couple hours ago from recording that the Work for Your Beer gals checked this in not too long ago with a bunch of other high wire beers, which is pretty cool. If you have not checked out, they're stocked up on Untappd's YouTube. You can see what's in their beer fridge. A lot of sours and other sweet beers. But check it out. It's on Untappd's YouTube page. But that was pretty funny looking this beer up. And the first person that I saw was someone John and I did yoga with not too long ago that I'm still feeling.
You could maybe say I survived.
That was a blast. I hurt in places I didn't even know had muscles the next day. So that's tells you something.
It was one of those times where I'll never forget. I'm always wrong whenever like my wife will ask me a question. She already knows the answer, and then she was like, should you stretch before? No, honey, it's yoga. It's not designed to hurt or make you sweat. All it is stretching. And then I think, I don't know, 3 minutes into it, I was sweating, and I couldn't keep up. That was one of the many times I've been wrong.
Won't be the last.
The cool part about the taster badge, I don't think you can be wrong. You can debate it, which is my favorite thing to do, but I want to say that it's almost impossible to get this wrong.
Yeah, let's dive into that badge a little bit and start this wild debate, or I guess we'll see what happens next, flowing. So what's not up for debate is how you can earn this badge. Check into 5 beers with the serving style of taster, and this is levelable up to 100. So I personally have a ton of work to do. I am a level 1 right now. Womp womp. 3 away from a level 2. I guess after tonight I'll be 4 away or 2 away. And I earned it with a beer called Polar Bird, from a winter warmer from Fly Machine Brewing Company. You'll hear that name perhaps a couple more times tonight. We'll get to that though in a hop, skip, and a jump. But because I look at flights there, and that's why, without really too much about my take on the taster, I was at flights there, but I'm not really a flights guy. I do it there because they have so many different kinds of beer that they brew. It's kind of like I'll stand at the menu for 10 minutes before making a decision of what to buy first, and then at that point I'm like, forget it. I just need a flight. So that's really the only place I do it. So I wasn't surprised to see that this was the beer that unlocked this lonely level 1 for me. But John, where are you sitting with this taster please badge?
Well, Harrison, my background in sales has trained me to say that I have twice as high of a level as you. 2 times farther.
Great, 2x. Good return.
Yeah, so I'm at level 2, and I earned my level 2 while I was at home, and I was checking into a beer called Bassa Bassa, which had like pea flower. It was a purple beer. It's from Wire Brewing in North Carolina. Yeah. And I can't remember exactly what was happening when I did this, but I looked at my check-in photo, and it's in a pint glass with maybe 2 ounces of beer in the bottom of it, and I flagged it as a taster.
Fair enough.
So that's how I earned it. But I mean, really, I think the question that we've been tasked with elaborating on is, what is a taster? What deserves your taster flag when you're checking into a beer on Untappd?
Right. Cool. And Mark started a killer poll in the Facebook group. Big friend of the podcast, Mark has helped us out many a time when it came to some of the beers we've had on here. So not surprised to see that Mark was stirring the pot a little bit on the Facebook group with this post he put out the other week. Kind of to summarize it quickly, saying, forgive me if this has previously been covered, but how does everybody log their flights at a brewery or bar? When I was an Untappd newbie, I logged them as tasters, but after a while, I realized that a taster is usually a much smaller, thimble-sized drip when requested from the waitstaff. Am I cheating by logging them as drafts now, since they're not full pints? So, love this. This is like thought that I feel like a lot of Untappd users have, even just beer fans kind of maybe in general, like when do you use the term taster? You don't want to get, obviously, the order wrong at the bar, so you want to be clear there. I've been in that situation a couple times, but for many different reasons. But this is great. So what did we kind of, what were the initial reactions on the group, John, when he posed this out?
Yeah, so Mark got a lot of coverage when we saw this. Mark made this post before season 4 when each episode was going to focus on a badge. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. In the poll answers, I think the winner was based on the volume of beer you're drinking.
Correct.
A lot of people set measurements like if it's less than 8 ounces or less than 4 or less than 2 ounces.
Yeah, it was overwhelming.
That seemed to be the way that a lot of people would like kind of quantify, is this a taster or is this a draft?
Right.
Or can you have a taster from a can? And then there was the opposite side, albeit not as loud, where they were like, if it comes from a tap handle, it's a draft.
Right.
So
right, exactly.
That begs the question, how do you even get a taster then?
Right.
Those are called dregs, and it's some of the first beers I had were just the leftovers in someone's can.
Yep, I know. So it was 101 people voted for anything under 8 ounce that's a half pint is a taster. So that's okay. And then the second most votes at 20. So the 8 ounce and less is the winner by far, but 20 coming in. That David Metzen added saying it's whatever you want it to be. You set your own rules. Love that. I'll elaborate more on that in a moment. And then, right, as you said, someone else said, right, if it's pulled from a tap handle, then it's a draft, regardless of size. And then Mark put another suggestion in there that got some 13 votes saying, let's have, Untappd add another serving style called Flight, which would probably be really hard to do logistically, and like from a user interface side of things, it might be tough. And really, I mean, when you look at the actual badge itself, the image of the badge is of a flight. I mean, I'm pretty sure when this badge was added, that was Untappd's thinking, was people do lots of flights in taster glasses. Let's create a badge for that experience. And that would be definitely easier than like redesigning Untappd so you could check in 4 beers at once and call it a flight. That's a big lift that can't just happen. A badge, that can happen a little bit quicker. So, that's me kind of just piecing things together. That's by no means like I don't think the official, it's just me using my deductive reasoning, watching a lot of Sherlock Holmes show, and here it is on display.
I think so. The one thing I'll say with confidence is that, when Untappd launched those serving styles of draft and can and bottle and flight and crowler and growler, most of them are, where does your beer come from?
Right.
Was it in a can before you drank it? Was it from a tap handle before you drank it? And taster is like the only one that's really subjective.
Right.
It's maybe Harrison, you just cracked open like a Bourbon County 2016, and you don't want to really share it with me, but you'll pour me a little nip, and maybe I want to check it in, so I'll check it in as a taster. That's, I think, is a taster from a bottle, and I think that makes sense. But at the same point, if I go to Flying Machine with you and we can't decide, so we order a flight of beers.
Yeah.
I know personally, I usually check them in as draft. Mm-hmm. You can tell because my draft badge is way up here, and my taster badge is level 2.
Yep.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with knocking it as a taster. When you're out, I think it's really subjective. The time I'll get kind of critical on this is if we're at a beer festival.
Right.
Then I feel like everything should be tagged as a taster. Yeah. But again, that's just what I think. What about you, Harrison?
So I kind of have a couple different factors that I am constantly tracking in the back of my head when it comes to a taster. And it really probably stemmed from my first experience with the term was, a young craft beer explorer in the wilds of Philadelphia, and I went to a bar and they had a bunch of beers on tap, and I saw one that looked kind of interesting, but it was probably like a huge stout, and I was like, oh, I don't want to. If I don't like that, that's a heck of a commitment. I'll just try some. And so I flagged the bartender down and said, hey, can I try that beer? And they walked back with a whole goblet of it, and I was like, oh man, I messed up somewhere. Something got broken down, and I don't know if it's someone who was with me or a stranger who saw my kind of the look on my face when I said try and a whole beer showed up, passed down the knowledge of like, you should, if you want to try something, you should ask for a taster of it. That way they know you don't want like a full pour. And so early on in my beer journey, that was the word that I had on the tip of my tongue when I walked into any bar was, am I going to grab a little taster of? And a taster was like an ounce or two maybe in a shot glass or whatever they had nearby that looked kind of clean. They could shoot some beer into and give it to me and deal with paying customers, because at that point I was just a tourist because I hadn't really bought anything. So again, so anyway, but again, I evolved as we all do in our life, hopefully, but definitely in our beer journeys. And kind of now the way I look at it is, if it's a flight, I see a flight as like a taster, and it's more because I really feel like you need to have at least a half pint of something to like understand what that beer really is. Like, you should sit with it for a little bit and experience it as it gets a little warmer in the room, and that whole thing you've heard me talk about. But however, I kind of allow myself throughout the year like 4 or 5 check-ins, and I'll check these beers into Untappd from a taster that is like a tiny pour, whether it's an ounce, 2, 3, what have you. They're usually from like really high ABV beers, and I never rate those Untappd check-ins that come from an ounce or 2 or beer. It's really like the vain bad hunter in me that's like, wow, this is a crazy burial beer that'll never exist again, and I have it right in front of me, but I don't have time for a pint of it, so I'm going to grab a little shot of it, get my 6-pack, and get out of here. But I want to log that I had it because it was cool. So that's kind of how I approach it. So I don't rate the ones if it's less than kind of a flight size, and if it's a flight for me, it's going as a taster. But I don't, like I said, really do flights anymore. So here I am, just sitting looking at level 2 of that badge, hoping to get there one day. But I probably put way too much thought in it, but that's where I land. It's kind of a taster is right, perhaps a range of things, but certainly, below a certain ounceage is something they all kind of share.
Can you still call it a taster if you've drank a pint of it? There's definitely a logic puzzle in there, right, where like nearly every taster would have been a draft if only you gave it a little room to grow. So there's a big like right, if then paradigm that happens in right, here, but sure. But I don't know. I think you could easily argue this either way. There's a very gray thin line where your serving style goes from taster to, if we were in the UK, we could get third pints. Right. Are those tasters? Exactly. So I feel like it's more subjective.
Yeah.
Was it, did you just rent the car, or did you test drive it, or are you leasing it? That's a bad analogy because those are legal things.
But a lease is a way of renting something. Yeah, I think you're right. But it's slightly different. Sure, I like that analogy, actually. Right. If you never go back to the car lot, sure, you have a new best friend that's the car salesman stuck in the car, but I think after a while, by common use laws, you'll own that car. If you just drive around with it for 20 years, they kind of can't take it back by then. So that's a heck of an investment of your time and somebody else's. So pick your car salesman wisely. Make sure they're funny if you're planning on using some weird loophole to get a free car that takes 2 decades of your life. Or at least looks resourceful. Maybe not have to be funny, just kind of, I don't know. But yeah, if you guys don't agree, please let us know. Comment up in the Facebook group. But John and I, it sounds like we both kind of stand on, there's a range here we can should be able to all happily live in that is a taster. The point is, don't abuse it. With great check-in power comes great responsibility. So don't be the guy out there, right, that's just claiming he's having drafts of everything at the beer fest. Calm down. We're worried about you. That's a lot of drafts to be having in a day.
There's a different badge for that. And speaking of different badges,
this is exciting.
There's a challenge. I kind of issued you, Harrison, but I said we were going to need some help to materialize. So I want to take a second, give a big shout out to Travis. Thanks for sending me a message on Untappd. Huge shout out. Yeah. Travis, you'll have a special episode coming up around the middle of March for the badge titled I'll Be Back.
I'll Be Back.
Travis actually noticed that Harrison and I are at the same level on that badge. It's also low. But this being the year of the lager, Travis challenged us to level up the I'll Be Back badge, and then we're going to feature that badge in a mid-March episode right before National Bach Beer Day on March 20th.
Yes.
Which is awesome. Harrison, the Bach Challenge begins right now. Good luck to you.
You as well. It'll be fun. We'll all be Bach, drinking Bach, and maybe listening to Bach. I don't know if we can afford that. We'll see.
Come with me if you want to. No, it's a different one.
That's right. Oh, man. But that'll be awesome. Yeah, Travis, that was so cool to see that you did that and took the time. So we really appreciate it. And here we go. We're off to our perhaps first of many badge challenges of the year. We really leave that up to you guys out there. We'll see how this challenge number 1 goes. I've got a lot of Bachs to go through, which can be pretty big beers. So keep an eye on my check-ins and how fuzzy those pictures look, and you'll be able to kind of tell how I'm doing.
There's no way for me to segue from that, but I want to take a minute to just advise you to maintain your own safety, because I need you on the show.
It's important.
But okay, so I'll transition away from that awkwardly. Just, pay your healthcare dues and all that stuff. Getting towards the end of this show, it's time to highlight a verified venue on Untappd.
Yeah.
And this one is kind of both close to me and Harrison and also close to a lot of other people. Yeah. We're going to highlight Wire Brewing, specifically the location. They just opened up in our hometown in Wilmington, but it's not their only one.
Right.
And okay, so for me and Harrison, this is probably going to be the place we go when we level up our taster badge, because we'll go there and get a flight. When I'm at home, I just drink the whole beer, so I usually check them in by the can. But one huge benefit to following someone like Wire on Untappd is they do $3 pints on Mondays. Mondays always suck, and these are like half price pints. So that's you can go on Untappd, you can check out their events, and you can see them on there. But also, every Wire Brewing tap room is verified on Untappd. They've got 2 in Asheville. There's the one in Wilmington that just opened up. There's one in Durham, North Carolina, and Knoxville, Tennessee, which is an amazing beer city out in Knoxville. All of them. Wire does a good job, I guess I just learned, of setting up tap rooms in cities that have good beer.
Indeed, they do.
So check them out on Untappd. Anything special that you wanted to talk about from Wire, Harrison, before we wrap up?
Absolutely. So they're doing something pretty cool. It's a new beer series. They have a lot of really cool beer series. They have like the, I think it's the Hazy, Juicy, Hoppy, and Fresh, which is a bunch of kind of like New England style IPAs. And they also have a new one called Wire Loves. And so this series is a collaboration-based series where they'll brew a limited release beer with another brewery that they like. And the beer is always different. And the inaugural version of this, a batch of this, is Wire Loves Wilmington, or WILM is how it is in the can. And they collaborated with Fly Machine Brewing Company, who we've talked about a ton, and we'll talk about more. And they made a pale ale hop with Sabro, Citra, and Cashmere, and it's in cans. So if it should be distributed, right, most of Wire's footprint. I don't think it's just in Wilmington, but I'm going to keep an eye out for it this weekend. I saw it just start to get checked in, I think just a couple days ago for the first time on Untappd. So it's out there. I'll get my hands on it and check it out. But keep an eye out on that. Like I said, they're going to be brewing with breweries all over. So maybe if you can grab this one, there might be another one closer to you as this Highwire Love series moves on. All right. Well, what an episode, guys. Well, the debate of what is a taster may rage on unsolved. What we do know is that exploring new beers is good. And really the size of your glass, whether it be a thimble or a 2-liter boot, I mean, that just comes down to your own personal preference. Choose wisely, though, because too many boots can lead to a different kind of booting that will have you saying you wish you had just a couple of tasters and didn't go all in. And, as always, make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Jump on podcast on Untappd.com. Like and subscribe if you haven't. But John, what are we looking towards next week? What's on the horizon?
Well, folks, look out on the horizon with my telescope. Perhaps get a little "Avast ye scurvy dogs! We've got the swashbuckler badge on the plank." Or some pirate voices, maybe.
Yep,
Did you know you used to be able to set your Facebook preferences, like the language preference? You could tell Facebook that you were a pirate.
That's right.
And Facebook would rewrite everything in the language of a pirate.
Good old days.
So, anyways, next week, we're still chasing lagers, specifically the German Schwarzbier or a dark lager with the Schwarzbuckler badge.
That's right. So grab ye eye patch and sharpen ye peg leg, and we'll see you guys next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.